Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Let's Learn with Lucy. Today we are going to understand a very warm and culturally rich chapter from Glimpses of India titled A Baker from Goa by Lucio Rodrigues. This chapter may look simple at first, but trust me, it carries deep meaning about tradition, culture, and everyday life. So let's not rush into it. Let's understand the chapter slowly, clearly, and analytically. Before entering the chapter, let's understand its context. Glimpses of India has three independent parts, and each part gives us a picture of a different region of India. This lesson focuses on Goa. It talks about food habits and shows us how culture lives through daily routines. This chapter teaches us that culture is best understood through ordinary people, not extraordinary events. Lucio Rodrigues was a Goan writer, and that is very important. Why? Because he is not describing Goa as an outsider. He's writing as someone who lived there, grew up there, and experienced this life personally. That is why the chapter feels natural, honest, and emotionally connected. And this is why the tone of the chapter is quite nostalgic. This lesson reflects his deep love for Goa's fading traditions. This chapter is a reminiscence, which means it is a memory of the past. The narrator looks back at his childhood, describes how the baker was a part of daily life, and gently compares the past with the present. So, who is the baker? Who is a Goan baker? In Goa, the baker was known as a Padre or Pater. He was a regular visitor, a necessary service provider, a family and trusted figure in every village. The daily presence of the baker shows that bread was an essential food in Goa, not a luxury, not an occasional item. The baker wore a traditional dress called kabai. This dress was knee length, made him easily recognizable. It became a symbol of his profession. So, what does this tell us about? In early times, people were known by their works, and their occupation gave them identity and respect. The baker's daily routine was quite fixed. He visited early in the morning and sometimes again in the evening. He announced his arrival by banging a bamboo stick on the ground. Analytically, this shows simplicity of village life, dependence on human signals instead of technologies, a close connection between people and daily routines. Now, moving on to the relationship of the children and the baker. Children eagerly waited for the baker. They ran out when they heard the sound, preferred bread over sweets, ate it plain or with tea. This is an important observation as the chapter highlights simple joys of childhood without luxury or artificial food. This again adds to the nostalgic tone of the lesson. The author mentions different types of bread. First comes the bowl, which is a sweet bread given during marriages. Then we have bulanhas, the small bread rolls. Next, we are having the cakes and the pastries for special occasion. Bread was not just a food, it was a part of celebrations, customs, and traditions. In Goan culture, marriage gifts were incomplete without bread. Festivals required bread as a necessary item. Daily meals depended on bread. This clearly shows that bread symbolized prosperity, happiness, and togetherness. That is why the baker held such an important place in the society. The baker was financially comfortable. The author does not say this directly. Instead, he describes the baker's healthy and plump appearance. This is called indirect characterization. It shows us that baking was a successful and respected profession in Goa. Now, moving on to the Portuguese influence on Goa. Goa was ruled by the Portuguese for over 4 centuries. They introduced bread making, baking furnaces, European food habits. The chapter shows how colonial influence continues through daily practices even after our independence. Moving on to the continuity of tradition, the author clearly mentions that Bakers still exist in Goa. Traditional furnaces are still used. Bread is still baked. Although clothes have changed, methods have modernized, the central idea remains the same. Traditions adapt, but they don't disappear. The tone of the chapter is quite nostalgic, warm, and reflective. This is because the narrator fondly remembers his childhood. He values the simplicity of the past. This point is very important for your exam answers. The major themes in the story include cultural heritage, tradition versus modernity, importance of simple professions, food as identity, and childhood nostalgia. Each theme adds depth to a simple narrative. These themes help us analyze the chapter more deeply, not just to summarize it. Now let's focus on the symbolism of the baker. The baker symbolizes continuity, cultural roots, stability. Why? Because the baker represents living tradition and community bonding, an ordinary man with extraordinary cultural values. Because he represents how ordinary people preserve culture through everyday work. Now let's focus on the language and the style of the chapter. The language of the chapter is simple and conversational. Anecdotal storytelling is used. There is no complex vocabulary used in the story, which makes it more easier for the beginners to understand and analyze. There is an effective use of imagery done by the author throughout the chapter. This makes the chapter reader friendly and emotionally effective. Now let's focus on the key terms for exam preparation. We are having Padre or Padre, which means a Goan baker, and the traditional dress of Goan bakers is kabai. Then we have bol or bolinhas are the types of bread which are used in Goa. And next we are having the furnace, which means a traditional oven. Now, moving on to the message of the chapter, modernization should preserve tradition, not destroy it. The cultural practices should shape its identity, and everyday traditions carry historical significance. So, at the end of the day, we need to understand that progress should respect the roots. To conclude, A Baker from Goa is not just a story about bread. It is about culture, memory, tradition, and simple ways of life. Through The Baker, the author shows us that culture survives through daily habits and people. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next class. If you found this explanation helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel.